Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here for this special workshop to discuss the downtown revitalization projects. But before we get started, as always, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So everybody has risen, and Councilwoman McDonough, would you lead us?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence to remember all of you men and women who are fighting for our freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, right, can be seated. So once again, thank you all for coming out for this public workshop this evening. This is an important meeting. As you all know, this involves the revitalization of the downtown Mahopac Business District, including the Swan Cove Lakeside Recreational Park, and also the municipal parking lot, which will be where the former bank parcels are located. I'm sure you're all familiar with those. And also Chamber Park is going to be incorporated in this design as well, some redesign in Chamber Park. And the downtown Mahopac sidewalk widening, new lighting, sidewalks are going to be much safer for pedestrians to cross. There's going to be bulb outs or bump outs where vehicles can't park on either side of the sidewalk, blocking or obstructing your vision from crossing it, because as you all know, Route 6N is a busy road, and we want to make sure that everybody does that safely. So with us tonight we have the full board here with us tonight. Thank you all for being here. And we have Jim Gilchrist, our Recreation Director, is here. Jimmy, Mike Carnazzo, our Building and Codes Enforcer. Rich Franzetti, all the way in the back, he's the Town Engineer. And Steve Baranowski, he's Councilman-elect. Steve, thanks for being here tonight also. And Jeff Cantelmo. We have Jeff Cantelmo from Insight Engineering. Jeff is the consulting engineer for this project. Him and his firm have assisted us with the alternative designs that you see on the three boards up there. If they look familiar to you, they are very familiar, because we used those. June 30th is when we met here last to discuss the downtown projects. So Jeff and his assistant Dawn, who's an architect design engineer. I have that right, Dawn? Landscape architect. Okay, I gave you a promotion. So Insight Engineering is a very reputable engineering firm. They're located here in the town of Carmel, which is even better because, we're giving business to our local businesses, and that's what I like to see happen. So Jeff has been working very diligently on this project, and what your role is tonight, and I appreciate everybody turning out for this. I was hoping that we'd have more residents here, because this is an important design element project, if you will, where we're going to take your feedback and your input, and we're going to incorporate it into the design of the Lakeside Park, the municipal parking lot, and Chamber Park as well. So your feedback is important. The success of this project is based on community input and feedback, and I feel very strongly about that, and I know this board does as well. So I appreciate you all attending this meeting here tonight. So after tonight, after we've presented the three alternative drawings, the conceptual designs, if you will, then I'm going to open up the floor to public comment. And please, if you want to comment on these projects, come up to the podium here. I just need your name. I know a lot of you, but I need your name for the record. This is live streaming tonight, so those folks that are at home who couldn't make it here tonight are watching it from home if they tune in. So everybody, that wants to join us tonight is hopefully will be joining us, but I appreciate the turnout here for you. So what we're going to do now, Jeff, I'm going to open it up to you. So would you please bring us through the conceptual designs, the alternative site designs that you have there. Speak a little bit about each one and what they represent, and what elements are part of the amenities to the site. Thanks, Jeff.
Test 1, 2.
There we go.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Jeff Cantelmo from Insight Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. See a lot of familiar faces. We've been here in town for 32 years. We're celebrating our 32nd year. We're very proud to be here in Carmel, very proud to be involved with this project. This evening, I have with me Dawn Lewis-McKenzie. Dawn is our senior landscape architect. She's worked on this project from start to finish along with me. And as Ken said, this has been an exciting process to work with the town board and the other town officials to see the vision come around. I'm going to walk you through some of the boring background real quick, and then I'm going to let Dawn talk to you about the exciting part, which are the three alternatives. There was a bunch of work that led up to these three alternatives, as well as the streetscape alternatives, and I want just to quickly give you the background. The project components involve the Chamber Park and what is known as the Old Swan Cove parcel surrounding Mahopac National Bank, as well as the Route 6N stretch from the park to Cherry Lane. It also includes some work on Cherry Lane to bring that around into a better condition. The four components of the project, again, really revolve around Route 6N, the parking on the south side, which right now is diagonal, making that parallel. That's going to reduce the number of parking spaces, but it's going to create a much wider, more accommodating sidewalk, which will be able to be streetscaped and improved from an aesthetic standpoint. It also includes the redevelopment of the Chamber Park in connection into the new park, as well as the development and redevelopment of the new park. Lastly, Cherry Lane. Cherry Lane's a very narrow and unorganized street as it is now, and the idea is to formalize that and bring it to a better place. As I said, there's over 600 foot of sidewalk, curb, streetscape improvement along 6N, new street lights, street trees, ADA accessibility, as Kenny pointed out, with bump outs and appropriate accessible ramps. As far as the Chamber Park goes, it's really a function of just reorganizing some of that to connect properly and work properly with the new park and parking, which we'll get into a bit. It'll also include the dredging of the channel, redoing some of the landscaping, and maybe reorganizing some of the improvements. The proposed park, which is in the Swan Cove area, will involve a number of improvements. A bridge, which will go between the new park and the Chamber Park, walkways, benches, picnic tables, lighting, landscaping, as you would expect in a typical lakefront park, new restrooms and office space in a small building, the regrading of the parking lot to eliminate the flooding, the dredging of the channel, a fishing pier and boat launch for kayaks and small craft vehicles, not power vehicles, a sailboat and kayak storage area for the recreation department, a fountain in the channels to create, an aesthetic, as well as expanded parking. And there'll be a total of 80 parking spaces added in this area of the park to balance the needs of the downtown area, the park, and the bank. Cherry Lane, again, there's very limited improvements, but in consultation with the highway department, it was decided that Cherry Lane would be best suited as a one-way street from 6 to 6N. It's only a 25-foot right-of-way, which is really a narrow right-of-way. A typical town road right-of-way is 50 feet. So there's very limited area to work in, and therefore there's limited opportunities there. Our first task was data collection. I'm not going to go through all the things we did and all the plans we assembled and the research we did, but our firm has been involved, as I said, in town for 32 years, and I think one of our first jobs was actually the water line down in the Mahopac area. So we had quite a bit of data on that area, which we assembled and put together in a GIS format for the town. We then studied that data and conducted some more detailed studies beyond what had been produced for the area. We did a hydraulic and hydrologic model of the area to understand stormwater and flooding aspects. We did geotechnical investigations in the form of 19 borings throughout the project area. We did some quality testing on the boring material to make sure there was no surprises in terms of environmental problems. And then we did some preliminary work having to do with Army Corps of Engineers permitting that would be required for the dredging of the channel and the lakefront. We prepared summary memos relative to all of those aspects, as well as permits and summary of documents delivered to the town. Our third task was the one that was most exciting, and that was to prepare the conceptual designs. We prepared multiple designs. We worked through some of these designs with staff, with the town board, and refined them to what you're going to see this evening. Again, the Route 6N and Cherry Lane improvements are relatively, I would call them low impact in terms of the impact, overall. As you look at a plan like that of the stretch, you really don't see much, but the street trees, the new lighting, the expanded sidewalk, the sidewalk accents, the potential for street furniture will really enhance that stretch in a way that we hope the store owners and shop owners will embrace and take full advantage of. Again, Cherry Lane is a very mundane set of improvements that would include improving and channelizing the roadway, incorporating a sidewalk, and looking for opportunities for some parallel parking. So we saw this as our biggest challenge, and that was balancing the new park with the demand for parking. And as most people know, downtown Mahopac at times is stressed for parking, but it works. And bringing new park in obviously is going to bring a bigger demand at downtown that'll hopefully help with the commercial and service establishments. And what we're trying to do is establish, a significant green space that takes full advantage of the lakefront, but also recognizes that, parking is an important part of the downtown improvement. Our charge was to work with a number of 80 parking spaces within the park area and balance that with a list of park improvements that you saw earlier on the slide. One of the things that was very, I'll say, confining to us was the existing traffic patterns that we had to maintain. Sycamore Road, as most of you know, is a private road. It is not a town road, so we had to respect certain of the improvements along there. And then the DOT, New York State DOT, just put in the new light at 6 and 6N and fixed the entrance going into this property with a new signal, new crosswalks, new handicap ramps. So we felt obligated to work with that as a given. We also had to take into consideration the parking needs and circulation of the bank. The bank has a drive-through, which creates a very unique pattern for vehicles moving through the parking lot. So all of that, those three things were givens that we pretty much had to work with. With that, we're now to the exciting part. So I'm going to let Dawn talk to you on the three alternatives, and then we'll open it up for comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so now we get to the fun stuff. And, I can leave that up on the screen, but I think it's a little bit more helpful. These are a little bit larger. We have each of the concepts on the board, and they are concept plans for your new park in the downtown area. So each one of these has a lot of the same elements incorporated into it, but it's just reconfigured in a different way. And we were just trying to lay things out in a way, give you some options, different ways to look at it, and you can see by each one of them has a parking area, and this is the Chamber Park, but circulation has been changed and reworked around, and then this is the Swan Cove area, and the green space is out by the lake, so you get an idea. And each of them are generally in that sort of configuration. And one of the things that was really important, aside from making sure we had plenty of parking, and you can see how much space 80 parking spaces takes up, is to try and get enough green space, and each one allocates that green space in a different way. Every one of these has a strong pedestrian connection between the parking and downtown and the parking and the park area, and all of them have that. Every one of these schemes just configured in a different way, and you can tell they each have a network of pedestrian paths throughout the park system that gives different people different opportunities to move through each of the spaces. They all also, as major elements, is a lot of waterfront space for the public to get out and get access to the lake. In this area here, they're going to dredge the channel. Over on this one as well, there's opportunities to get out on the existing Chamber Park site. And each one of them has that to a different degree. Large green spaces for recreation activities, put on by the town, the recreation department, a lot of spaces for people to just come and hang out or to walk around, seating areas out by the lake. A lot of those, the playground is shown in different locations in each one of the schemes, so we can keep a playground at the park. Some of them have more trees than others. The alternative two in the middle, one of the things that we were asked to look at was, there's a lot of traffic along this section of Route 6N. And when people are sitting at the light, wouldn't it be nice to have a really good view all the way out to the lake? So there's less trees in the center area of this so that you have a broader view, whereas the other concepts are a little bit more treed, so there's more shade produced there. It's just different ways of looking at it, depending on what the priorities are. And once again, this is your park. These are concepts with some ideas thrown out there. Strong pedestrian connections to downtown in this location. There's an existing crosswalk here, closer to the intersection. So there's a strong connection there, which can take you out in that direction. Each one of these has a similar relationship to that because we felt that those were important ways for people to get to and from the park. This is the existing entrance that Jeff was talking about that New York State DOT put in, working with what's going on here. And there's the bank, so we have dedicated parking. There's the drive-through for the bank. They'll all access in this way. This one has a lot of green up front and along Sycamore, right, and along here, whereas alternate number 2 it's got a much bigger green up at this area out by the lake. There's the recreation building, but we've also, in order to get the 80 parking spaces, put some parking in this location as well. But you still have as much green space as there was before, or as there is in the current condition for the existing Chamber Park, just with a reimagined circulation system, a different way to define the spaces, keeping the existing gazebo and utilizing that in each one of these schemes. We have a couple of options in this one where we're keeping the existing shade tree that's out by the lake. This is the fishing pier, kayak launch, different options for locations for those. See, some fountains in the channel. This one has one bridge. This one over here has another bridge, providing just another way of connecting the two spaces together, the two park spaces, so that it feels a little bit more like one big park. This one, we went a little crazy. There's 2 bridges in here, but you can see there's strong connections for pedestrians to the downtown. So that's it. Just a general overview. So.
Okay. So that was a pretty comprehensive overview of what the 3 alternative concept drawings are of the parks. As usual, Jeff, you did a great job outlining it. So,
Kenny, your mic's off.
I'm sorry. You guys did a great job outlining it. Thank you. So, members of the public, it's your money that the town is going to be spending on these parks. So your feedback and your input is very valuable to us because we want to hear from you what your thoughts are. And remember, one person's thoughts may vary widely from someone else's thoughts. But collectively, if we hear all your thoughts, and don't be shy about coming up tonight and speaking at us and with all of you, because when the final design is created for the downtown projects, it's going to be based on, largely in part, by feedback from you folks. So you're the taxpayers, it's your money that we're spending, and we want to make sure what we're doing is what you want, as opposed to what we want. So it's important that we hear from you. And as I said, this is the second public workshop meeting. We heard from a lot of folks on June 30th. And some of you who were here on June 30th are back here again. I appreciate the fact that your interest level is very high, and that's why you're here. So we want to hear from you folks, and I think what we're going to do, did anybody sign? There was a sign up here. If you didn't sign up, don't worry about it. I'm going to go row by row, and then when we hit your row, and you want to come up and speak, once again, please just tell us who you are. Just give us your name. You're from Mahopac, obviously, or Carmel that you're here, and that'll be just for the record that you spoke tonight at the workshop. So without any further ado, why don't we, did everybody have enough feedback from the consulting engineering firm? Do you understand it enough where you at this time you'd like to speak about it? And everyone has the handouts that we prepared for tonight. So you can bring that up with you here. You may have marked it up while you were following along with Jeff and Dawn, and bring that up with you, and you can use that as part of your presentation when you address the board on this. But it's really about what you want, so we want to hear from you what your thoughts are. So why don't we start in the front row?
Ken, before people come up.
Oh, okay.
Before people come up, because we're still showing concept 1, 2, and 3. Well, we had a long discussion about concept 1 and 3 on the location of that building down by the lake,
Right,
with the promising
Right.
to the bank.
right,
So,
yeah.
I mean, we're doing the same thing and not telling the people. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm only looking at alternative 2, because we promised the bank nothing would block their view. They're contributing to this. And, take it from there. But, before people come up and start talking about 1, 3, and 2, and 3, I mean, we've had this discussion before.
What's that?
Want to clarify.
Okay, yeah, we did have, last time we met, John, June 30th, we had all 3 drawings, 3 alternative drawings, and, the board had met also to discuss these projects, and I agree with Mike, alternative design number 2, there seemed to be, some support for that from the board and other our consultants as well, Rich Franzetti. So do you want to speak on that part, Rich? No, go ahead. And why the 3 boards are here tonight?
Right, so Councilman Barile is correct. There was a big discussion about that. So part of what's going to come out of tonight is a single conceptual design will be made here. I'll take this off, sorry. Ultimately, Insight will give us a single conceptual design. So what Councilman Barile had mentioned, and I think Supervisor Schmidt and the board was aware of, negotiations were made when we purchased the property with the bank that the building would have to sit back further to give that unobstructed view to the lake versus here. So to answer Mr. Councilman Barile's question, these are the same 3 that we had the first time. They haven't changed. What we're going to ask people to do is ultimately take from column 1, column 2, column 3, and we're going to make the final design. It appears that this concept with the building backwards or closer to the road and away from the lake is the way it's going to be. So that's a gimme right now. So that's something, has been asked for by the board or discussed with the board. It looks like that's what's going to go on. That's my understanding of what happened with this. Otherwise, the other pieces of the conceptual designs can be added or taken away. But that's one of the things that looks like it's going to stay, is that building gets pulled back closer to the bank.
We also discussed, it wasn't just the bank promises that we made, but we also discussed the actual view of the lake. I'm quite sure everybody could agree that when you're coming up 6N or you're coming up Route 6 and you stop at that traffic light now and you look to your left, you have a little bit of a smile on your face like you do when you're going into the hamlet of Carmel. It looks a lot better. And where the building is proposed on 1 and 3, it actually blocks part of the view from that traffic light, and it actually blocks from the church area along East Lake Boulevard. So the reason for moving that building back was to expand the view and keep our promises.
Yeah, and Mike, just piggybacking on that, the building, we wanted to move the building back, if that wasn't stated already. The building, we wanted to move it back as far as we could, so it's not sticking out too far into the park, because we didn't want wasted space behind the back of the building. So one of the recommendations was to move the building back as far as we can, and just to allow for some passage around the back of the building as opposed to a 4 or 6 foot opening behind the building. So the further back the building goes, the more the park is actually open when you're looking at it from the road, looking out towards the lake. So that's one thing that we stressed, that building should be back as far as it can. And where Councilman Borelli had indicated the location of it on 2, I think the consensus was that that's where the building should be located, as far back as it can without blocking the view of the lake. Mike, does that pretty much cover it, what we wanted to do with the building?
Bottom line.
Okay, all right. Any other board members want to say anything at this point? No? Okay. All right, so thank you, Mike. So with that, we're going to go to the public now for your feedback and your input. And as I said, we're going to go row by row, so we'll start over here. Tom?
Thank you, Ken. Now it's on.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh, hang on, Tom. Hold on.
you got me?
It's on.
Okay.
Still doing it. I used to do this for a living. Great job on Insight. I mean, it's beautiful. This is going to be what I call the beginning of the renaissance of the hamlet. I'm hoping it'll spread right through. I like the idea of repositioning the fountain between the two parks. That's a balanced look. And the 2 or 3 fountains in the inlet are good, for many reasons. Not only decorative, but it also keeps the mosquitoes down and a lot of other things. But I'm torn between the 1 or the 2 bridge. I kind of like the 2 bridge because it connects you to the North Point, and the other bridge goes directly to the gazebo in Chamber Park. One thing, I'm not a fisherman, but I think the fishing pier will be better served if it's as separated as possible from the kayak launch. It's not to upset the fish or the fishermen. I love the walkway around the inlet and the lake shore. My one concern is what we used to call in Yorktown decades ago Lake Caldor, which is the parking lot. I know it's going to be regraded, et cetera, and I know what they did in Yorktown a couple decades ago is they tore up the entire lot, put in high-tech drainage, and then laid the foundation and paved it, and it's never flooded since. So I would ask Insight to make a note of that. Were the storm drains along 6N improved?
Yes, they were.
Excellent.
By
Well,
the bank, from the bank down towards Chamber Park. on that side.
that'll solve a lot of sins when it comes to the rain.
It wasn't everything that we wanted from the DOT. There was one change that we weren't aware of that they made until when they started construction down there. There was a catch basin that they took off the plans that they removed, without telling us, and we became aware of it during construction. Mike, remember that when we went down there? And that was an important catch basin for the drainage system for the DOT, and they just removed it. And their rationale was it was too close to the Central Hudson gas line, which runs along that curb. So there was interferences, which they should have been aware of when they were designing their project. You would think, their engineers, they should have known that there was a gas line interference in the pavement there underground. So they abandoned that.
Last thing is the rec building should be away from the water and set back as much as possible, so as not to interfere with the vista. Other than that, good job.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Okay, we're going to go to row 2, starting all the, no? Okay, sir? You can. Okay. All right. Yes.
Going to go through it twice.
Marie Frankel, Mayapack. One sort of unrelated thing I just want to bring up quickly before I go into this is, I'm sorry. Carmel will receive almost $3-point-something million on the American Rescue Plan. So is that something, like, how does the town know how it's being applied? And it can be applied to the parks, so I just want to know if
Yeah,
possibly we're going to do that.
So we're receiving $3.4 million.
Yeah.
from that rescue plan.
Yes.
We're still waiting on final guidance as to how we can spend it. But Greg, can you just speak on that for real quick?
Well, whatever choices that the town makes with the money, there's no pre-approval process. Okay, there's a set of criteria that you'll have to evaluate in making the expenditure. Infrastructure is one of the things that will be permitted. There are also other items that are non-capital in nature that it can be spent for, but we commissioned a study by auditors, which should be out back to us shortly, just in terms of some guidance on what spending would be permitted. This is something that's certainly in the category of consideration, but it's not determined as of yet, and it's all very much first impression, being that the money just came here at the end of the summer. So if it's possible to do it, then it's entirely likely that the board will use some of the proceeds towards
Yeah, 'cause
this.
my understanding is one of the areas that you can use it, would make sense. I mean, it's going to be a big nut for us, this project. So I also agree with having that rec building back, but the rest of, number 2, I don't really like the way the access is. I love having the extra, like the mirrored walk on Sycamore. I don't like having, there's an access right by an exit for the park, right by where the entrance to private property is. So I think that's not a good idea. I know the dredging and the drainage is going to be a gigantic dollar amount. And the second one does away with the fountain, so I don't know how if it could be integrated, or can the fountain just be kept where it is? It seems like a lot of money to move a fountain and put it back. I don't know why. And then in terms of like the trees, I know we made a lot of comments. I didn't realize that any of the comments we made in June weren't going to be integrated in any of these things. So there were a lot of comments, which I actually didn't bring all my comments from then, but so
We
that
have-
was-
Yeah, I have them all here.
Okay,
Yep.
so, but I thought they might have been integrated at this point. So trees, are these like shrub trees, big trees? I don't know. Do we know?
Dawn or Jeff, can you speak on the trees?
I don't think we want to block the view of the lake with big trees.
So just like, yeah. Because I know everybody was concerned keeping that big tree that's there now, and it's,
Right.
on version 2 it's there, but on the other one it's not. So I
So,
just,
The tree is staying.
the tree is staying, okay.
Big tree.
And then lighting, I know, I presume those little dots, they're all lighting. We talked about downlighting the last time, and possibly solar. Is there any way of possibly having them solar powered?
Sure.
We have that down here too. Yep.
Okay. And then, so I don't know how you integrate, moving everything back to, and I really like the layout on the left of, other than the access that's right there on the first drawing. I think that's, so when you move back the building, you're losing some parking, so you've got to make it up somewhere else to still have the 82 spots or something, so I don't know how you do it. And then I know they talked about, it says here, boat tie-up and stuff like that, and I forget how that, I thought it was, is there a limit of time, or what? I forgot.
No boat tie-ups.
No boat tie-up, so,
No.
okay, that's what I thought, okay.
The pier, yes. The fishing pier, yes.
Yes,
We've all agreed with that, having the pier there, and the little launch for the non-motorized kayaks and non-motorized vessels is going to be as far off to the corner. In drawing number 2, alternative 2, you see it 16? So we felt by putting that over there out of the way would probably be best.
and then on 2, it says, I'm just a little confused, because it says number 25 is eliminate the drive-through, but then number 3 is access for the drive-through. So is there, how do they get through the drive-through if they eliminated the drive-through?
The bank is closing the entrance off the road.
Yeah, it's the present drive-through that they have now. It's not the drive-through that they're proposing.
Oh, okay.
You know
'cause
the
it's-
drive-through that they present, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I know.
Yep, that there, they're going to eliminate
okay.
that to the right of the bank.
Okay. And I definitely think, I think, too, I like the fountains. I think one bridge is enough. People can walk down the side. I don't know why we need 2 bridges. And that's my feeling, so. But I'd love to see some of this money go to this.
Yeah, Mrs. Frankel, I'm in agreement with you. I think that one bridge, a design with one bridge in it would be sufficient as well. Yes, Bob?
Bob Frankel, MAPAC as well. I would just like to focus on alternative number 1 versus alternative number 2 as it relates to access.
Yeah, pull that a little closer for the people.
Is this
at
better?
home.
That's better.
Okay. I'd like to focus on Sycamore Road between alternative number 1 and alternative number 2. When you look at alternative number 2, it looks like it's a pedestrian path.
Bob, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you pull that mic down a little bit further towards you where you speak? Yeah, I think
that
that'll.
better?
Yes,
Okay.
that's better. All right.
Sycamore. Alternative number 1 versus alternative number 2. On alternative number 2, it looks like there's a pathway going along Sycamore so that at any point somebody can step off that pathway and enter onto Sycamore, which, as we said, is a private road. So if it would be at all possible, I'd rather have the wall that is reflected on alternative number 1 as a barrier to that. And then also, when you look at the very top left corner on both alternatives, right where the park ends, there's a gate which says no trespassing. So it seems contradictory to direct any pedestrian traffic right in front of that gate. So if we can delete the pedestrian access in the top left corner, that would be good.
Remove the pedestrian access?
Remove that.
Like, what he's saying is, you see,
North-
like,
north
here it's
lookout,
pedestrian,
the point.
and then here it's pedestrian going right into Sycamore.
The new covered
So
outlook at
kinda-
North Point on 1.
so
I'm
kinda
sorry, I
go
can't
like
hear you.
this And get rid of this
Okay.
here. Okay, so the access would go here and then back around, loop
Mm-hmm.
around here, and then get rid of this access. Almost like what they have now. Right now,
Yeah.
they have it just grass and then the fence. So keep that, don't make a pedestrian
Exactly.
walkway there. And then on all of them, on alternative 3, the one that goes down towards Sycamore, towards the end, past the playground, loop that around, don't let it go into a right into Sycamore Road, because you're actually walking into a fence.
Exactly.
So have it loop around
So on
this
three-
way.
On 3, you eliminate that also. Like that
Yeah,
makes sense.
so you eliminate it on all of them, like all of this.
With the addition of the park on the other side of the channel, I understand the concerns of the people on the point. And personally, I don't think there should be any other building on the chamber area, on the North Point, or walks along the road. But you should have a little entrance up by your gate, because there are quite a few people.
Right now, we come out of the gate and walk down Sycamore Road, and I don't know, it's about 50 feet, 100 feet, and then there's an entrance there, so to walk an extra 20 feet or 30 feet is
I mean,
not
Yeah.
is
one
not an
entrance
issue.
For the people on the point is sufficient. And I agree with what you're saying is.
We just don't want to direct traffic
Yes. That-
where
the
there
Chamber
shouldn't be.
Park, when it was originally built,
This.
was supposed to have nothing on it.
Yep,
And I understand exactly where you're coming from.
okay.
Like that.
And then, I guess, one additional point of question. What is going on in terms of the outlet of Sycamore onto 6N, in terms of what is going on with the outlet, the walkway across Sycamore right at 6N? It says pedestrian refuge. What can you explain that?
Jeff?
So one of the things that we spoke about and Dawn stressed is the pedestrian connections. And just to step back a minute, the connection that's shown coming up into the corner in all areas that you were referring to was really to connect the people coming from the point into the park, not to take the people from the park into the point. But we understand your point, no pun intended. As far as the refuse goes, one of the keys to pedestrian movement is safety as well as accessibility. The DOT does have something to say about that, believe it or not, even though that may not be in the right-of-way. The connection to the sidewalks, the safety of the pedestrians crossing that roadway is in everybody's interest, especially the point's interest. And what was intended there was to take what right now is an undefined crossing that's very, very wide and probably the most unsafe condition you could have for a pedestrian crossing, and create a very defined crossing that would meet ADA accessibilities and provide a refuge halfway across by extending or putting, a brick area or something to designate that to drivers that's a pedestrian area where you could cross one lane, rest, wait for cars to go by, and cross another lane. Again, these are basic pedestrian safety concerns that, will have to be taken into consideration.
I understand. Jeff, one question about that, though. What is the effect of that on the existing garden, what do we call it, a gardening circle?
The circle.
Yeah, that's part of design. That'll be when somebody gets in and designs the actual.
No, what I'm saying is that's point property right now. And so the question is that going to be lost? Is the town taking it? Is it going to be
There's
shaved
no
or-
intention right now of the town to take it. The idea is to maintain the circle exactly the way it is,
Okay.
build out in front of it to provide that refuge, and provide a crossing there that's safe and meets current standards.
Great.
And whosever property it's on, when the design is finalized, the town and the parties will have to discuss it and come to an agreement, whatever agreement it is.
Good.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The DOT's been very vocal on crossing at that particular area. So we're probably going to end up deferring to them. When the angle parking comes out and all the parking is pushed into here, they want to see where the people are going to walk. And they're going to have a lot of final say on how it's done.
Next row, Larry, did you want to?
Good evening and thank you. And I'd like to thank the engineer for the plans. There's a lot of detail on here and a lot of detail that can't be taken without plans like this, without topos, landscape drawings, etc. Some of the quick thoughts were we really only need one bridge. On Plan 2, that does look sufficient. The gazebo on the current existing park is ample. We wouldn't need another gazebo at the very end. That would not be necessary. Moving the building back, the recreation building, certainly a good thing. I don't think we need to build another fountain. We can save the money. Putting aerators into the canal would do a few things. One, it would help circulate the water, keep it clean. It would be aesthetically a wonderful water feature. Instead of building another fountain, get a better aerator. They make ones with beautiful lights, with patterns. It could become a showplace for that park very easily. Save the money on the second bridge, make a bigger pier. If you're going to make a pier, make something nice that juts out into the lake. That would be very beautiful. The new park on the canal side, it would be wonderful if there were a row of low bushes, making it, instead of just all pavement, there was a low landscape feature. Speaking of low landscape features, be careful about the trees we plant, because as you had said, we want the view from 6N. You start planting trees, they're perfect for a year, then they're too big, we'll block the view. This is all about being able to see the lake, being able to experience and preserve the parking. Having the parking in front of the existing park is wonderful because it's easier for people who have trouble walking, etc. And it's just, if you're going to have more parking, put it up against the road, leave the lake area more for view and for open parkland. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Larry.
Larry, on what you just said, that was another thing we discussed that I thought would be incorporated in some of these drawings. The fountain never aesthetically really fit there, okay? And it was done as a memorial where people would buy pieces of granite and engrave on it. There's maybe less than a half a dozen engravings on it, and we all discussed that we would take those engravings and incorporate it somewhere on a wall where we're building the building or the bathrooms where people are gonna see it. And I agree with you too on that area is a dead area, that once this thing is built out, nobody is gonna sit up in that corner right in the middle of that road. And there's definitely space there for another 10 to 15 cars, which will get the parking up to what it should be, of almost 100 cars, which I envisioned in the beginning. So I agree with the fountain, and there should be more parking there.
Okay. Ma'am? Craig?
Good evening, everybody. Craig Paper. I think Insight did a great job on this, but I do also have some comments. Some of them you've heard already. One point, I like to try to keep the playground as far away from the road, just from a safety perspective. Either any of the three drawings, the playground is fairly close to the road. Two of them, they're close up to the wall. I think having a wall there would help. I also like having the one fountain. I don't think we need any more. I feel one bridge is plenty there. I think it's good to be able to walk around a little bit. Something that came up the last meeting also, how will we control who comes up and kayaks and brings in their rowboats, and what about jet skis? I know we're not supposed to have jet skis, but will we have a day pass or?
That's going to be for Jimmy and Recreation to come up with a plan. I know we spoke about it last time. There was a whole bunch of, be it Jimmy, you could probably speak on it, be like a card that you go on. Jimmy would be able to speak on that
I'm all
more.
for the town of Carmel having access to bring a kayak, a canoe, and go out on the lake. What I think we have to control about is people from my old neighborhood in Yonkers and other places coming up and, taking up all the space.
As we developed the park, we were talking about having a swipe card that you could pick up at the recreation department. You'd have to provide residency, come in, similar to getting a tennis pass or a swimming pass at our beach. Provide your identification, you get a card. They have the magnetized gates that, I don't know if you've ever seen them on any kind of tennis courts or dog parks. You'd swipe the card, it'd open the gate up, you'd have access to the lakefront.
That'd be great.
So we would have that with the area where the boat launch would be. The rest of the waterfront we would envision would be the walkway all the way around, so you'd have no vessels would be allowed in those areas.
Yeah, because it could cascade, right? We start bringing people from other communities, and we lose our parking spaces. We know parking is tight anyway, so we have to control it, right, to our own community.
It's pretty much the Wild West out there now. I've seen some
Right,
people.
that's, yeah.
But, and we also discussed at the last, I think we were all in a consensus with, there would be a drop-off to go in and a drop-off to come out to split it up.
Yeah.
And going in would be in the channel, and coming out would be by White Cell.
Good, and I don't know if we could force some people to go park across from CVS there, but we have that parking lot there that's totally underutilized, because we don't want to block the views of everybody, so.
Yep.
But I think this is a fantastic job. It's going to be a huge improvement.
Great. Thanks, Craig.
Jeff. Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you. Okay. Going across? No? Sir? Did you have any comments you'd like to make, ma'am? No? Okay, we're going to go back over here. Sir? No questions? Sir? What, the Ohio State fan? No questions? All right. Sir? Okay, over here.
Rosemary Gebhardt from Carmel. Thank you very much for the plans. They're very well done. I was not at the June meeting. I would like to second what the gentleman said. I am concerned about the safety of the playground and the location. So I don't know if you could speak a little to that as to what was proposed or what you would do. My other concern is disabled people. Some people have the motorized carts and things, and if they want to enjoy the park, are the walkways adapted for that? Because that could be an issue with strollers and motorized vehicles for handicapped people.
Okay, Jeff, could you make note of that? Yeah. You did, okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gephardt. All right. Sir, you can come up now.
Yes, my name's Peter Gebhardt, and I've looked at 3 plans, and one thing that comes to mind is what Ken Schmidt made it very clear at the beginning of this program, is that us taxpayers are going to pay for this, and this is important for our input, and I want to find out if there's been any effort made to secure federal funds, as was done in Hamilton Carmel revitalization many years ago. That didn't cost taxpayers in the Hamilton Mahopac or Mahopac Falls any money. Does anybody know if there's been any?
So our grant writers, Millennium Strategies is the grant writer that the town consults with. They submitted downtown revitalization initiative applications to the state for funding. And there's also a DRE, it's called, that is submitted every year, probably around May, June timeframe. So there is applications that we've submitted for funding. I'm not going to hold out too much hope, unfortunately, that we're going to receive much in the way of grant funding. I hope we do, and I hope I'm proven wrong, but I think history has shown that for whatever reason, Carmel historically doesn't get its share of funding from the state or the federal government for any projects. But we have applied. Our grant writers have submitted applications, and we've included the downtown projects, Swan Cove Municipal Parking Lot and the lighting and sidewalks, as part of the application. So it is submitted, and we just haven't heard back yet from the state with respect to whether or not we're going to receive any funding. But if history tells us anything, we've been submitting for many, many years, and for whatever reason, we're not allocated any funding for any of these downtown projects. We have received some funding, multimodal funds, over the years, but nothing really significant or substantial where, it's a big chunk of money. Small grants we've gotten, but not the larger ones that would be used for these type of projects. But we're trying, Peter. Our grant writer is very active. And Bob, right, he submitted the revitalization grant funding? Okay. All right, so we're trying, Peter. I've actually reached out to our congressman, and I have heard nothing back from his office. And I'm not saying that to disparage anyone. It's just that there's been attempts made to reach out to our federal representatives, and it's almost like we don't exist.
That's unfortunate. Yeah.
It's a very, very large Republican stronghold in this area, and we live in a very large Democrat-controlled state. Let's leave it at that.
That was just a question. I do like to comment on the designs as well. I think that for sure it's going to be very beneficial to have a nice appearance in the Hamilton Mahopac for the community. I think it's going to enhance people coming to shop in the businesses. One thing that I was noticing is that the parking, are some of those spots going to be allocated for tenants of the buildings that are along the 6N corridor that have businesses underneath with tenants up above that have to park their cars? These are residents there that rent. Where would they park?
I think we discussed also no overnight parking.
There's going to be no overnight parking. And all of this has also been discussed with the master plan as well. But this parking area and this parking lot that we're collaboratively putting together is for the residents and for the downtown business owners. What we want is pedestrians. We want pedestrians to come in, park the car, walk around, visit the lake and all, and then come back. It is not for the tenants to park their cars there.
So where do the tenants park?
There's going to have to be a discussion with the owners of the buildings when the time comes, because once we lose all those spots in the front of 6N,
Right.
I don't know where they're going to park, to be honest with you. They may have to go down, and it was discussed the other day at a meeting, they may have to go down to right across from CVS. There's a very large municipal parking lot there that they can, and it's all with sidewalks. You know, that may possibly be an option. I don't know the answer to that, but that's something that the tenants, not the tenants, the owners of the buildings, you know, we're going to have to discuss with and, you know, work out something. But, yeah.
Yeah, that
but
was a
this- but
question-
This parking lot is not meant for that.
That was a question that was brought to my attention. It's just a comment. I certainly feel that one bridge is more than sufficient, and I do like the idea of not having, as in Plan Number 1, having the playground further away from Sycamore Road. Has anyone made any consideration at all that the parking could be metered parking to help pay for this project? So that the people who come to utilize the park and to shop in the area pay for parking and offset the costs of building these lots? I mean, the hamlet of Brewster, the village of Brewster has had parking meters for 100 years. So has anybody looked at that alternative?
It has been brought up. No decision has been made. You know, you don't want the individual, you know, the old-time meters, you don't want them there because then it just looks ugly. You know, maybe something like White Plains where you go and swipe your card, but no decision has been made. You know, we haven't gone that far yet, but it has been brought up.
I think the main thing that was on my mind was the cost of this project. I believe that it's a plan that's going to go forward, whether it's alternative 1, 2, or 3.
Nope.
Ooh,
The
no work tomorrow.
The generator's starting now.
There it
Oh,
goes.
there it goes.
Taxpayer money. So with that in mind, Kenny made it very clear when he...
Smart Shop, 16 items, source.
Dominic, you good? Okay. Yep, so you can continue. We're still live.
Okay. Kenny made it clear that this is going to be a costly project. And what I'm wondering is that maybe there should be a park district created for the hamlet of Mayapack that's going to pay for this. Because I just don't see how it's fair, even though I might be able to bring a kayak there once in 5 years if I don't get hit by a motorboat. But I don't see how this is fair for people in the hamlet of Carmel, in Mayapack Falls, or in any of the other districts outside of the hamlet of Mayapack, that the benefit is predominantly for the hamlet of Mayapack. So I think that the funding should, I think there should be a park district developed, and whether you have meters or not or whatever, but I think the people who are going to benefit from this park are the ones who should really pay for it. And that's my comment.
Thank you. Another quick question. I'm not sure if anyone had asked the question. Will there be dedicated parking spots for people that are utilizing the kayak launch? And will there be a time limit on the parking spots? Because if it's going to be utilized a lot, you might end up, you know, taking 15 or 20 parking spots for kayaks.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. I just actually. Charlie, he was asking if there's going to be dedicated spots for the kayaks, because if people come in and kayak, they may, you know, use those spots while they're kayaking. And I know last time it did say that there was going to be, it was discussed, again, this is all conceptual, few dedicated spots for kayak, 10 minutes to launch and pick up. So that's what people were talking about last year. It would be the same as if somebody comes and they park there and they go downtown for an hour or two. You know, people are going to park there and for more than 10 minutes, and that's, you know, that's, you don't go to Cold Springs or anything and just, you know, park for 10 minutes and then leave. You come and you want to vacate you want to go and use the water. You want to go in downtown to, to shop at the places that were, with the master plan and with all this downtown revitalization. Again, this is for the future. And it's a work in progress also. Not anything we do here, it's not that, if you see that the 10 minutes isn't working, then we just revitalize it, we revamp it to what can work.
All right. I just think with everything that's going on between the fishing pier, the kayak ramp, the park, the playground, the downtown businesses, I think the 80 spots are going to fill up pretty quick. And without any type of regulation, be it some type of payment regulation or a time limit, I think they're going to fill up pretty quick. It's my thought.
It may, but I got to be honest with you, I hope it does, because that's why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't want to build this and have a vacant lot.
No, but you also
'cause
want to have it fair to people to use
we failed.
the park.
We want this to be, we want it to be filled all the time. We want it to overflow where they have to go down to CVS.
Right.
That means we're successful.
And one of the other parts of this project are, we've discussed this multiple times about eliminating the diagonal parking in downtown Mahopac, which you all know is very dangerous, trying to back out of those spots onto Route 6N, which is a very busy road. The state DOT has been at us for years, telling us that you need to do something about that, because we don't allow backing onto a state highway. But in this case, because our parking is limited, they really haven't come down too hard on us. But there's been discussions about going to a parallel parking type concept there. So if we do that, keep in mind we're going to eliminate about 22 parking spaces. So we have to create new parking before we do anything about eliminating parking. So the municipal parking lot is going to be important part of this project, because if we're to remove 22 parking spaces that are currently there now, we have to create new parking for the merchants and for the customers and for the public. So, but that's our plan, is to eliminate that diagonal parking. I think you all can agree, anybody who's tried to park there and back out of there, it's difficult. So we'd like to go to parallel parking over there. And Cherry Lane, there was some discussions about Cherry Lane, about creating a one-way instead of a two-way. And as you all know, it's extremely tight going through there, especially if there's cars parked on both sides of the street from Bliss on the corner of 6 down to Ming Hing. I see them parking not parallel, but they're perpendicular, and they're sticking out into the travel portion of the roadway, which is not good. So to me, those vehicles, there should be no parking there, and there should be enforcement in that zone. So the plan is to, Mike, am I right, eliminate the two-way to a one-way concept, a one-way plan? We just haven't decided which way, because I know you're probably thinking, well, which way would it be one way? So, we're going to ask Jeff what his thoughts are on that, and perhaps, maybe the DOT. But anytime you get the DOT in any projects, it's like having a root canal. It's horrible. They just, they're not very receptive to wanting to work with us. They're very difficult. I've been trying to get them to dredge that canal where the stormwater from their stormwater system dumps into Lake Mahopac. You all know where that is, by the Chamber Park. It's completely impacted with silt and dirt and gravel, and the water can't flow through there. And that's part of the problem, is because that drain pipe, which is theirs, they won't come and clean it out. I've made multiple calls to the DOT to try, and I know the engineering department has as well, but I wish they were more willing to work with us as opposed to not work with us. So they're a very difficult agency to work with. But part of the plan, this plan, is to dredge that canal, if you will. That needs to be dredged out also as part of this project. It's just totally impacted by all the runoff, all the silt and runoff that's been going on for many, many years. So I can remember when I was a youngster living on the lake, I could take my boat. I would drive my boat from one end of that canal all the way to 6N almost. You know, it was that deep, it was that wide, and over the, Larry, you remember this, right? You know, over the years, and Charlie, you've probably done it, you just can't, there's no way to get a boat in there now because it could barely float the boat. It's so much buildup in there. So anyway, part of this project is to dredge that canal out. And yeah, let me contest. Thanks, Susie.
Yeah.
I was just going on a
I'm
little
bringing
bit.
him back.
She
back
just
to
brought me
the,
back. All right.
let's continue
So
with
where
public.
do we leave off, Charlie?
I just realized that between us, there's this foot post, so I couldn't keep
Oh, I couldn't
you,
get you.
But now I realize
Now we
that I
can.
can move it.
Hi, my name's Charlie Melchner. My wife and I, Lillian, live on South Lake Boulevard for 50-some-odd years, and we love living in this community. I want to thank the supervisor. At your last meeting, you mentioned that you went to a traffic study meeting on South Lake Boulevard, and you're trying to instigate some revisions. We appreciate that in many directions. As we all know, we had a tragic loss of life there, and some near misses and some very difficult times on South Lake Boulevard. As it was built originally to be a scenic road, it is no longer a scenic road, but it's a tertiary traffic area, and it's been very difficult. I want to thank Insight Engineering and our town engineer for doing a great job giving us so many different things to think about. Although I don't agree with a lot of them, but it stirs the thought process. Has the town board made any recommendations other than what we see here from the past meetings that we had?
Well, that's the couple of things that I brought up. I thought we had a consensus on was moving the building, an in and out for the kayaks, removing the fountain, enlarging the parking area in that area. But I see, we're looking at the same plans. But I think we're all pretty close on our thinking.
So when we say we're close, are we thinking, when do you think this will be coming to a final thought process or a final decision? Is this a 2022, 2023?
I think after we had that first meeting in January, at the end of June, I think the idea was to have a second one where perhaps those who weren't able to attend could make their comments, and then take in. I think after 2 meetings, we've had enough public input and feedback from it where we can implement into a new schematic the things that we were just talking about. But I think we wanted to get enough public input before we really started making final decisions.
From here, we go to a final design from Jeff. The new board looks at it, and then we start the process of permits and estimates.
Okay.
Hold on.
So,
Charlie, Rich wants to say something.
I mean, the things that we've done so far, like the traffic light, the bank negotiations, the sidewalks, those are things we got to jump on. And I'm quite sure everybody could agree, quite a difference. But now, once the engineer and Jeff come up with the final plan, that's when the nitty-gritty starts. And it's not going to be quick, not when you're dealing with DEC and DEP.
And Army Corps of
And the Army Corps.
And Army Corps of Engineers, and every other government agency there is. Even though they made the mess that we're asking them to clean up.
Thank you.
So I just one clarification to what was just said, and the next step is we're going to. So part of it was we had a meeting in June. It was supposed to be the next meeting was supposed to be on the heels of that. We're having it now. That's why the drawings weren't updated. We're going to take these comments. The board, whether it's this board or the future board or everyone together, whatever, is going to then look and say we're picking one conceptual design. As I said before, mix and match, right? Take what everyone's saying tonight. That becomes our conceptual drawing. The next step after that is the town is going to release an RFP, request for proposal, to do that design. So we're not going right into design. That has to be awarded to a consulting engineer or a land use development. Insight would be able to bid on it or propose on it, along with any other company would be able to propose on it. We then go through the process of awarding it. Then we go through the design. That design identifies in more detail all the permits that are going to be needed. I think we would be getting the permits within that design. That's why it's going to take, who said it's going to take time? It's going to take some time because we got to deal with permits, right? So the next step, RFP goes to a design. The design includes the permits. Then we know a cost estimate because we can put that out to bid to build it. Then that's the next phase. So there's another phase beyond that is design, then build. Well, it's not a design-build project, but you know what I mean.
Thank you for the explanation. I appreciate that. I surrendered my time to Craig.
Hi, Craig Piper. Rich, I think we all agree that everyone in the community is anxious. I think Susie and I were mentioning this. People are anxious. They want to see something. Is there a chance, I know you got to bid the whole scope of the work, but is there a chance to phase, I'll say, the quote-unquote easier projects? I think Swan Cove is going to be a lot of work, dredging. I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny, a lot of DOT. I'm not sure if it's true like this, but if Cherry Lane is quote-unquote easier and less time-consuming, or the sidewalks, is there a way we can bid this in different phases so we can get started soon to show the community something's happening?
That's a board decision, along with guiding the engineering department, and I'll give the floor to you guys in a second. The answer is yes, it can be done that way. The answer is, does the board want to do that? Then you're three different RFPs. You're now dealing with maybe three different consulting engineers for design. So there's issues
I've
with
bid
that.
a lot of jobs. I understand you can't piecemeal job and do $3 million. I'm not saying to hide anything. I'm just trying to show some effort.
You're locked in, Craig, with the angle parking and the parking lot. You can't get rid of the angle parking until the parking lot is there.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? Just do Cherry Lane now? And then Cherry Lane, we don't know how it's going to come out with the angle parking gone. So it really is all at once it has to be done. And it has to start with the parking lot has to be done first before we could even think of the angle parking and widening the sidewalks in downtown and doing Cherry Lane. We went over this 1,000 times trying to figure out how to get something started.
All right, I just thought I'd put it out there.
It would definitely be nice to see some, like you said, some progress
Something,
down there.
right.
But, you know, it has to be done, I guess.
You can't do the parking unless they have a place to park. Right?
Everything, you do one thing and it affects something else. So you gotta, using the engineering, using the consultants that we have, we'll put it all together and get it done as best and as quick as possible to see the results that we want without having wasted time or wasted effort.
Craig, I think the best way to respond to your question about the construction, so we'll develop the design, so there'll be one design, but we can phase the construction if we choose to do that. The town chooses to do that. They can phase in work, but the municipal parking lot has to be completed before we can move to downtown Mahopac to do anything down there.
Okay.
So,
thanks. Charlie started to jump in there.
Thank you, Craig. I don't think Charlie has any time left, Craig.
Another great meeting. Thank you for having these meetings. We all appreciate it. So we paid somebody to do a master plan. Am I right in saying that? When they did the master plan, how many parking spots did they say we needed for the downtown area? And when they did the master plan, was it on the board? Was it on the table for them to recognize that we were losing 20 spots in downtown?
I don't think it was, Charlie, I don't think it was the master plan. I think you're maybe talking about when Jonathan Schneider did the downtown parking survey. Is that what it is?
And how many spots did they say we needed?
I think the analysis, I think there was 120.
there was originally 120.
I want to say 120. I don't know. Again, I think that may have been, and I could be wrong. I think that may have been.
That's the number I have, 120.
Yeah, I think that may have been. You know, like how we instructed Jeff to do the 80 parking? It may have been instruct them, we need 120. I don't know if the survey was done to say you're going to need 120 because I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
We need to put as many parking spaces in there that we can.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
I think we do need because I know we had the notes from the last time with the parking, there was the 80, but then you took away the 18 for the bank. And granted, the bank is not open like it used to be, okay, but you still have to allot, you know, for some of the times, those 18 being done.
We took away the 18 from the bank, and then we took away 20 from the diagonal parking, so we lost almost 40 spots of the 82, so we were down to less than 40 spots in a gross. And when this plan was put forward, I'm repeating myself, I apologize from the last meeting, but we did this as a parking area. This gentleman brought up a good point, Mr. Gebhardt, I believe your name is. One of the reasons for doing this parking in the downtown is that the whole community can drive downtown and look at the lake, because so many people said you can't see the lake. It's strictly a Mahopac Lake. By having this parking area, we're hoping that the people from Carmel and Mahopac Falls and Lake Secor come and park in that area and use that to be able to get to see the lake. That's one of our strives with putting all this parking area in there.
Charlie, the previous board before me.
There was one?
Paid for a very expensive parking study. And the parking study said over 100 spots.
Okay. So
and the town has not gotten smaller.
So I've spoke about this at the last meeting, and I went on parking, all that stuff. And I say that as a businessman of 50 years who's purchased property to park cars on for our small business in town. I was very involved, luckily, in this wonderful county to be on a committee to build the Mahopac Chamber Park, which was built through our community, through every school, collecting money all over. Everybody in this town worked hard to do it. Okay, so we can get this, something like this done. So we have a beautiful park there now. What we need is parking. We need it desperately. When the winter comes, and thank God we still have winters up here, but the tenants, as somebody brought up before, where do they park their cars when the towns are coming through and you can't park? There has to be provisions in some of our rules to have some of those parking spots available to people when they're plowing, you know, to be able to put their cars.
Snow emergency parking.
Thank you. Emergency parking. Master plan. Cherry Lane. When you look at Cherry Lane, I've stood on that corner for half a century. We need to think about how we're turning off 6 coming onto Cherry Lane and how to go from 6N out onto, how to go from 6N out to 6. I really think, I know the DOT will probably be the final saying on that, but as was brought up before by our town engineer once again, it's only 25 feet or so wide, that whole deal there, and we have to really pay attention to that. Now that we're revitalizing downtown and changing the parking area, which I think, Kenny, Susie, didn't we get a $200,000 grant to do that a number of years ago? The sidewalks and the lighting?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a multimodal grant.
Yeah.
Yes.
New York State grant.
Senator Ball, right? Greg Ball got that.
Some of
so,
it
yeah.
was, yes.
Yep.
Yep.
When we're looking at this, I don't see any area for bicycle racks in our plan. I think we need to put bicycle racks in.
Yep.
Okay, please.
Okay.
You received,
I have it.
this town board received a letter from the Chamber of Commerce supporting 500 members, business members, not all locally, but there are still 500 members supporting 100 parking spots or more. Okay? The reason for parking that we need it for businesses and for people to view the lake is that the more parking we have, the easier it is for people to shop in our stores. The more people that shop in our stores, the more money they spend. If they spend $100 in that store and get charged, our sales tax is 8.3 something another, when that money goes to the state, when we pay our sales tax, 3 point something % of that comes back to Putnam County to help offset our taxes. So it's dramatically important that we have good stores in our downtown that are doing good business, so we have money coming back into our county from the state. As our supervisor said before, we don't get a lot of money from the state. One of the reasons is we live in a very affluent county, and they don't think we need the money. I don't know if they're right or wrong, but that's what they think. Thanks for bearing with me. The last thing that I have, I've heard from a number of different people that the town is in very strong negotiations, or possibly it's past negotiations now, about buying the school property on East Lake Boulevard, where the Jim, don't you do rentals over there now, or sailboat lessons and kayak lessons there now?
Yes, we have kayaking, and we do other recreation programs on the lakefront route.
Cool. Because I have a very large concern about overloading that intersection with multiple things going on. As wonderful as all the multiple things are, I have a major concern with that. For safety, for people out on Mahopac Point, with cars pulling out, parking on their road, going in and out there. I have a big concern about that. The less we do there, the better it will be for our community. The better it will be for people to be able to pull in, park, stop their cars, get out, walk around, sit by the water, and enjoy that whole area. The Chamber of Commerce built that wonderful park years ago, and I think Jim and I had talked about it a while back, that it's a very heavily used park. Thank you for your time. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Charlie, I have one thing. Would pervious parking, you know, like how in front of the library they have the bricks and the grass can kind of grow over that, would that be something that's, you think, doable here? I know Jimmy was bringing that up as well, and I've heard it from a few people. So it doesn't have to be so-called like blacktop, but it could be the pervious parking, maybe another 20 spots, which would make it up to the 100.
Could be overflow.
So you can use it for parking when needed, but if you don't need it, per se, when the bank, let's just say it's the 18 spots for the bank, you know, that may be an idea as well.
So let me tell you how I feel about this. Once you open this up, and it's a wonderful thing to have the community and people that live in New York State, predominantly mostly our community, hopefully, use this property to go out kayaking and canoeing and day sailing, it's going to be a giant success. And people are going to park wherever they can fit their car. We need to have a specified parking area where it's going to be with the proper lines and the proper way to do it. And our town engineer will be able to do that. I certainly, as you could imagine, have no idea. But I can only say, after watching people do some amazing things trying to park, we need to really have it laid out properly. And I believe that we need every bit of 100 or more parking spots there. It's wonderful to have an outline of the green area where people can sit down by that beautiful tree and look out on the lake and enjoy all of that. But we need to appreciate it for what it is. Somebody said at the last meeting, it's a small, beautiful area, and we should keep it nice and green. Unfortunately, cars aren't green, but we need to do it. We just really need to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
You're welcome, Charlie. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
You know, at the end of the day, the investment that we made in 220 feet of lakefront on Lake Mahopac, including the bank parcels, totally it was a $1.2 million investment, and that includes the bank parcels, because the bank parcels were $397,000 for 4 parcels, but we used the DEP Good Neighbor money to pay for half of the cost of that. So the DEP actually funded half the cost through Good Neighbor funding of the bank parcels. So the bank parcels cost us $200 and something thousand for those 4 parcels. The $1 million that we paid for the Swan Cove site, money well spent, and I know that I got criticized, board members got criticized, that we shouldn't have done it, we paid too much for it, but you know what, at the end of the day, it's a great investment, and when that park is completed, when that whole area is built out, you're going to be proud of that, and I'm going to be proud of that. I just hope I'm around to see when it's open. I'm sure I will be, but it's going to be nice when it's built out. So, just wanted to state that.
Everybody else finished?
No.
Anybody else? Charlie Jr., were you going to come up? I'm good. You're good. All right. All the way in the back?
Gentleman in the front wanted to go too.
Which one, Mike?
That gentleman right there.
Okay.
Hi, Jen Colmonico, Town of Carmel. I just want to clarify Mr. Melcher's point about parking. Is there a net part? I'm trying to do the math on like what we've lost, what we've gained. Is there like a net gain in parking, like a number?
Jeff, can you speak? So the loss, Jen, the loss of the 20 spots in downtown where the diagonal parking is, plus the bank, 18 spots?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What's the net increase in parking?
42? Yeah, so if you start on Cherry Lane, Cherry Lane's a free-for-all right now, and any formalization on Cherry Lane will result in a reduction in parking because it's a free-for-all. We have not quantified that because it's almost unquantifiable. You go by there, and as Kenny said, they're parked all over the place. But there will be, if Cherry Lane is formalized in any normal traffic fashion, there will be lost parking there. As far as 6N goes, I believe the number's 19 or 20 along the stretch when we go from the diagonal to the parallel. And then we're picking up the total of 80 to 82, depending on the version here. So net, in real round numbers, not counting Cherry Lane, you're net plus 60 parking spaces. Now, again, you've got to take into consideration that some of those parking spaces are there right now with the bank.
That's what I was wondering, right.
Right.
Between the 18 for the bank parking,
Right.
but then there's, I don't know how many there are now.
Right.
So that's
So depending on how you want to do your math, if you take the 18 off the 60, now you're plus 42, right? So.
Okay. And a question about cost. I think you mentioned that the cost comes later, but I'm just curious, among the different options, what are the kind of cost drivers? What are the elements that would make a big difference in terms of the cost among the different
bridge.
proposals?
Yeah.
Having one bridge compared to two.
I think the dredging also.
Dredging.
The
And
dredging.
also raising the bank parking lots up 18 inches. I'm saying 18, it could be 20 inches, because the water has to shed away from the parking lot, it has to shed into that canal. So that has to all be raised up.
Is that different across the different configurations, or is that given?
Yeah, so the idea of raising the parking lot and mitigating the flooding problem is in all the plans. That's a given. Back in the old days, we would say that the biggest driver of cost is scope. Now we say supply chain, because there's some crazy stuff going on in construction relative to supply chain. But assuming that levels out, it's really the biggest cost driver is going to be the scope of the work, the finishes. We've talked about a seawall in certain areas along the edge of the lake, which could be very nice to create a nice crisp edge, which can start to get costly. But our vision is that this is a serious park that's going to need a serious investment, and skimping is not what we envisioned as we started to look at the concepts. But as the real design happens and finishes and scope is refined, those are going to be the drivers really with cost. Yeah.
In your opinion, is there a significant difference between these three?
No, it's really, these three plans were really to create the discussion and hear from people. They're from a landscape architectural standpoint, and I'm stealing Dawn's thunder, there's some very different things relating to these that people have not gotten traction with, which is fine. That's what it was all about. It's all about creating the discussion, creating the comments, having people feel really strongly about one element or two elements that ultimately will shape, the end product. So these are to get everybody talking. And at the end of the day, we've tossed around just some real big picture discussions on costs internally, and none of them are really different. It's going to depend on finishes.
Just two other comments. One is, and I don't want to steal Joe's thunder, but I would love to see a commitment for solar out there. I think it's just the right thing to do. I understand there's been grants, and so I would just like to underscore that there's a real opportunity for even solar panels, but certainly solar lighting. And I think that this also has to be evaluated in the context of the broader master plan in terms of what new businesses we're attracting, what experiences are we creating for families to come and have a picnic, but what else are they doing down there? So I would just, love to understand more about how this fits into the master plan for development of those small businesses that were mentioned. So give people more reason to come downtown, not only for I don't know how many people kayak, but certainly other reasons to go down and park there.
A lot.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I don't know if anybody has brought up today, there'll probably be at least 2 electric car charging stations.
Right.
So that would take away, well, it's not going to take away parking because it's parking. It's still there, but there'll be dedicated spots, for the electric car parking.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your service. My name's Larry Rubin, Mahopac Point. I think we're doing a good job. I think we all enjoy living here. Thank you very much. I don't know much about parking, except I know that parking is very expensive to regrade and to put down and pick up and dispose of is a lot of dough. So talking about scope, 100 is going to cost a lot more than 80. Personally, I feel that enough of the United States is capped already. I'd like to see some green. And I agree that although I like trees, that we need the vision to be able to see the beautiful view that we knew we had, but we couldn't see from that stoplight until we did. So yeah, we would all like to have more parking, but the primary thing is to have a park. Okay. I have a question. Did we ever consider a walk over the highway? Because the number one thing is safety. I mean, I pass this park 12 times a day. And there are times that are not business hours where these trucks go flying through 6N. So a walkover would solve it. I mean, you have walkovers in a lot of places. The other thing that I would think that would stop these guys from, I mean, they come barreling down to the light where the bank is, and they want, if they catch that light, they want to keep going. Okay? If they knew there was another light, they would have to stop. So the one way on Cherry is fine, but if you put a light over there, you're going to have less people coming through. And maybe, you know, it's dangerous. And you're going to have a lot more people there if Mrs. McDonald, I'm sorry, is correct and we succeed in making it available so we all start to use it a lot. It's going to be that much more dangerous. We have a lot of people, elderly people in wheelchairs sitting there during the day, children, and that's it. Now, I noticed between 2 and 3, the green area in the back, one is substantially larger than the other because you took it from the middle and you put little pieces all around. I would prefer to have the bigger square in the back and the little pieces all around to help the sight lines. I also noticed that on the two drawings from 2 and 3, even though it says the building is to be sized later, that the downward top view, one shows the building to be twice as big as the other one. So I would urge that the buildings be kept as small as possible. I did a lot of walking around at the kayak launch in Overpeck Park in Bergen County. Although I know Tomcat and Big Top, and I've been here since 1952. I was here in 52. You know, in Bergen County, they have kayak launches, and the buildings can be kept very, very small. I love our town, and I think everybody who lives here loves it. And I do think that the Vista is a big advantage for everybody in town, not just the people who live here. And safety's got to be our number one concern.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Joe Montori, resident of Mapac for over 30 years and president of Sustainable Putnam, local nonprofit. So thank you for, all you've done. I've loved the planning. I can only say that, Mapac has gotten nicer and nicer since I've been here. I remember when there were no crosswalks going across 6N, so we're definitely heading in the right direction. I wanted to make a couple comments about the environmental considerations of the planning, a couple of which have already been mentioned, but I want to underscore them. Regarding the flooding, obviously raising the parking lot is going to be very helpful. I'm wondering if you're considering permeable surfaces as opposed to impermeable. I know there's all different types of surfaces out there that are available these days. So I would, hope that you'd take a look at that.
Yeah, I think we're going to.
That's probably going to be dictated to us.
Right.
Okay. But obviously that would help alleviate the flooding problem. Regarding the plantings, I agree with the comments about keeping the plantings low for visibility. Native shrubs would be a great choice. They'd aid with pollinators, pollinator plants. Native pollinator plants would also, I think, be a good choice rather than, some exotic species from Asia or, the things we have typically planted in generations past in our gardens. And then regarding the bike racks, great suggestion. The bike trail, people will be coming from there too, going to the bakery and restaurants and so forth. And electric vehicle chargers, I'm so glad to hear that. That was one of the things that I had not heard brought up yet, and I'm hoping that those are installed there. I'm seeing more and more electric cars in our town. I own a couple myself, and there's really no place to charge anywhere around here other than at home. Yeah, I think if you do all of those things and maybe the solar lighting, they also make vertical wind turbine lighting for parking lots now. I've seen them before at local schools down county. All of those things I think would really make the area attractive and would really set us on the right path, for a more sustainable future. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Gene, did you have anything?
Hi, everybody. Jean Hopper, Mayapack. Yes, I'd like to thank everybody as well. It's been a great job. And reiterate what a lot of other people said. I don't want to repeat a lot of things, but I did agree with having a lot of the access. You had number 5. It said public access to Lakeview, the pier, there's a bridge, there's picnic tables and benches. Was there any thought given to the materials that would be used on those as opposed to asphalt? Like the access right against the lake there. You have this pretty picture here. Here's a picture of the, something like that as opposed to asphalt. Okay, but something to think about.
Gene, the engineering firm that the town is going to consult with or hire as consultants, they're going to tell us what's best or more suitable for that location based on what's there now.
And you'll think with green practices, I'm sure, in mind. Okay, great, thank you. I see you nodding. I appreciate that.
Gene, I'm quite sure, being in the business that I'm in, and the way things are today, that once you talk to the DEC and the DEP, that the asphalt on that parking area and that park will be minimal.
That's good to hear. And you mentioned permeable. That's also great. Because I was thinking about once you've raised that up and you've graded it and spent the expense of getting it up, putting all that blacktop and all those cars on there, long term, okay, 10, 20, 30, 50 years, we don't want that to start caving in and be a problem again. So always long term for future generations. We don't want to build something that looks great in 10 years, huge maintenance or, issues. That building, I agree. The footprint seems kind of large. What will it actually be housing? I know it says restrooms. And is it going to be rec storage?
Yeah, Jimmy, can you speak to that?
Yeah, mainly it would have, the bathrooms would be in there. It would be 2 bathrooms, a small office space. So if we had an event down there, we could have somebody that would work out of the office area, and then a small storage area.
So when we're saying small, what are we saying?
So if I said a small office area, I would say probably 12 by, say, 14.
Okay.
And a storage area might be, say, 12 by 18. Bathrooms would probably be, I'd say 10 by 20 each bathroom.
Okay. I mean, my suggestion would be to keep that footprint of that building as small as possible. I mean, we have huge airport park. This is for the public to use. I would hate to see this become something for municipal buildings. Okay, perhaps we could do that somewhere else, but not right in that park, not for the public. And I understand you probably need something small and restrooms, but I think we have.
If you see down in the park right now, we have a shed there.
Right.
That we're using for our programs. We use it for the farmers market. We use it for our concerts. We need to have somewhere to store tables, speakers.
Where are we storing those now?
We've been shuffling them around in vehicles. I've had to leave vehicles down in the park for the weekend. The Chamber of Commerce used it for the street fair. They stored all their tables and chairs there.
They're storing them where now?
No, they stored them there for the street fest that they had.
Right.
So I
shed
gave
there.
them access to the shed.
In that shed now, okay. What other storage? I guess I'm just trying to, my point is to keep it as open and as free and as for public as opposed to municipal.
Sure.
Things. So that'd be my one point. And also the bridge. I want to make sure someone also mentioned it, making sure everything is ADA inclusive. So there's no big arches on the bridge, mothers with baby carriages, wheelchairs, walkers, things like that. Trees. I'm a big tree lover, so that's me. And I know we're talking about, we don't want to block the view, but you also want to consider the people that are using this park in the hot summer months to make it attractive. Nobody wants to be out in a hot field. There's no swimming, so just something to think about. And also we talked about lighting, and lighting at that parking lot, we also don't want to block the view with big light posts. Talking about dredging and things, I guess I'm just understanding, I know this will really enhance the cost of this project. Who's going to be responsible for that? Is that New York State, that the Army Corps of Engineer? Who's ultimately going to be in charge of that? Do we know?
Jeff's going to answer that.
DOT, I don't know.
So the dredging will be a part of the project that the town will be funding. Now, whether there's any available funding to assist with that is a question, but that would be part of the project and part of the cost of the project.
Okay. I think that was it. Thanks very much. I appreciate everybody's time and everybody's input. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Joe, did you have anything? Nobody else back there? So does anyone want to come up one more time, Charlie?
Yeah, I'll do that right from here. Can I get any? Wait, you should probably speak to the mic. Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to get some support from the town board to have a rendering done with 100 parking spots, please. Can we get that done? With 100 parking spots? What it would look like?
I was going to speak on that.
I'm
Charlie.
asking you, I'm asking the
When
board.
the public is finished, I was going to speak on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to come up one more time? If not, we're going to go to the town board members for comment. Everybody's good?
I'm Lawrence Sachs. I've been in Mayapack, a whopping 55 years. We need more parking. We just discussed losing 20 parking spots. We're taking 18 for the bank. We're building a beautiful park. It is on the water, and we want to maintain that water. We want to look at that vista. In a previous discussion, I brought up some property that is located on Senior Avenue that is a vacant 1 acre. Title is held half by the county. Maybe we should start looking now for additional parking instead of taking it away from this breathtaking piece of property. So we really should be making an aggressive look at parking. The study with Jonathan Schneider talking about 100 spots was a finite time frame. That is long past. We have a lot more people here. We have a lot more traffic. And if you're inviting growth, 200 spaces is needed, not 100. We have a severe parking shortage. So I would like to suggest let's start looking for alternative locations which do exist. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
Kenny, just one quick thing.
Sure.
everybody's concerned about the parking and the 18 spots that are allocated to the bank. Keep in mind, the bank is open during a finite period. Reality states that people are going to use those spots when the bank is closed. So we're close. I do agree we could use at least another 20 spots. As Larry said, open up the scope of that issue.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
I just want to go with what Larry was talking about. Larry, with the master plan, there have been meetings about looking at alternative, the whole downtown revitalization, I'm going to say, okay? And part of that is alternative spots for parking. All right, it's a whole downtown revitalization that we spoke about. So that is being talked about. It's at its baby stage, but it is being talked about for the vision for the entire downtown, not just Swan Cove and Cherry, but the entire business district that goes farther down, down towards like Brooklyn Coffee House, the organic, Brooklyn Organic Coffee, and, it just branches out a little bit more than just this small area. I'm sorry.
Peter?
Just a quick comment about parking. I use the bike path a lot, and that's a great addition for Putnam County. And I think to put all this parking down by this beautiful park might be misconceived. I think people need to walk, because there's parking available right across from the library adjacent to the bike path. And when I ride the bike path, if I see one or two vehicles there that could hold 40, I see a lot. So I think that if you've got a spot for 40 cars already, maybe what needs to happen is the sidewalks need to be upgraded so people can walk from these various parking areas that are not exactly on the lakeshore to come to the middle of the town. Just a food for thought.
Right. Great,
Okay,
Peter.
thanks.
Thank you. That parking lot you're referring to is tremendously unutilized.
Yeah.
I know, everybody's seen it.
It's a stream of consciousness, what he just brought up about that county parking lot. I know it's been a joke to a lot of people. Has the town ever considered or looked into some sort of free shuttle service operating during certain hours? Because a lot of towns do have that at times.
But Larry, with the master plan and all, what we're trying to envision is pedestrians walking. And there's walkways there, there's sidewalks there. So to me, it's not buying into the master plan and what people want to see. People want to see pedestrians walking. The more people you see walking, you're more apt to get out and walk.
Yeah.
If we start saying, hey, we're going to shuttle you from here to here, you're not walking. One, you're healthier by walking. Two, there's parking available. It's just people are so used to parking 5 feet away from where they have to go instead of maybe 50 feet.
Yeah.
Granted, there's some people that cannot walk. Okay, that they have mobility issues, and I thoroughly understand that. But if we're going to buy in, and it's just not for this, it's for the entire. Like I said, guys, don't forget this is part of the entire master plan. The two downtowns, we want to see pedestrian walking.
Yep.
And that's a big from take back from everybody that's got this, brought back the surveys, that emailed, et cetera. So, the vision just needs to be broadened a little bit.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Is there anyone else that would like to come back up and make a comment?
Just a thought. Did they ever think of moving that storage and restroom to the other side of the canal? Why is it on that side to begin with? For restrooms, wouldn't it? I'm just wondering, just curious.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons. Mike spoke earlier about the issue relative to the view and getting it out of the way of the view, but from an engineering and a practical standpoint, one of the issues that's going to be primary in solving the flooding problem here is the raising of the grade in conformance with the town's flood prevention code. The town's flood prevention code requires that building to have a finished floor 2 feet above the base flood elevation. The base flood elevation is about 2 feet above the existing parking lot. So if you can envision that, the building finished floor is going to be up quite high, and that's a spot where we thought topographically that raise in grade could be accommodated without creating other functional problems throughout the park. As you move it closer to the water, you're going to fight grade.
No, I'm talking about on the other side, the playground side.
Oh, over here.
Yeah.
I believe there's a deed restriction that doesn't allow any buildings on that
playground
parcel.
side, you
Right.
have, I would believe, because if I lived there, you would have problems with the point, okay?
I see, okay.
Because
Yeah,
most
that's
people would be going to
valid.
the building up over there.
And what about
It
the
would obstruct
sewer?
Some of the view, and we already have existing water and sewer capabilities exactly where that building is.
And it would go to the street from there?
There's a sewer line going down to the old cottages that were there.
Okay,
They
that
were
makes
planning
sense.
on
And-
reutilizing, and the water line would come down where where Mayapack National gets its water from.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking if it was restrooms, it'd be nice to have it closer to the playground as well, and sometimes we have the concerts on that side, so,
We wrestled with that, how to get the restrooms closer to the gazebo.
right.
And that's the only place where it worked, where it wouldn't offend anybody, and it would be cheaper to build.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up one more time? If you have any final thoughts you want to share with us, come on up at this time. All right, so in closing, I just want to thank all of you for attending this important meeting tonight, and it's an extremely important meeting. Feedback from the public, as I stated earlier, is important when you're planning a project such as what we're doing here. So your thoughts and your feedback, they do matter. They do. And we all took notes. I know Jeff and Dawn were taking notes while you were speaking. So we're going to incorporate all of your thoughts. We're going to try to incorporate all of your thoughts into one plan. So there'll be one board, one final design board when the town board is ready to move on this. And I would encourage the town board to start beginning this project, in earnest at the beginning of next year, beginning of 2022, because, we're already probably 2.5 years, maybe 3 years into this, and we don't have a shovel in the ground yet. So it's my hope that, and I spoke to the board members that will be here and the new board members, that they're going to, move this project along, aggressively, and hopefully we'll get some work done down there. I wouldn't say, if I said in 2022 a shovel in the ground, I probably wouldn't be honest with you. I'd probably be lying to you. All right, this is probably a 2023 shovel in the ground project. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of engineering that needs to be done. It's a big project, and I just want to be as honest as I can with you. So if you're looking for a shovel in the ground next year, that's probably not going to happen. So it'll hopefully 2023. I also want to state that it's been a pleasure working with all of you. It's bittersweet. I'm leaving because of all the friends that I've made over the past 14 years of my life. So, as you can tell, I'm very emotional, but I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you. It's been an honor and privilege serving as your town supervisor, and I'm very confident that my successor, Supervisor Kazari, is going to do a good job as well. And the new town board member, Steve Baranowski, he's going to hit the ground running also. So this board, you're going to have an excellent town board, minus me. I'm not retiring. I can't. I'm 64, but I consider myself a young 64. So I need to work. I couldn't sit home and watch game shows all day, and there's only so much work that you can do around the house. So I'm planning on going back to work somewhere. I'm just not sure where that somewhere is at this point. So I want to thank you for your support and your trust that you've shown in me for the past 14 years. I was elected 7 times, which is an unbelievable record of accomplishment. I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of where this town is right now, and I'm proud of where it's going. So I want, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for supporting me.
You all coming back tomorrow night. I think as this is drawn and sent out for bids, that in the near future, as Mr. Melchner said, you'll probably hear a lot more scuttlebutt about the school property and the school building. And there'll probably be more said about it after I'm off this board. So until that happens, I think we should reserve what we're going to add into the parking area until we see what other piece of property we pick up on Lake Mayapack, so we don't duplicate it and overload this piece of property, which was originally, the idea was for a municipal parking lot and a passive lakefront area for people to walk. So pay close attention to what I said. There will be things coming out in the future after I'm off this board, okay? And until that happens, I don't think any money should be wasted here that could possibly be duplicated somewhere else. In my mind, this is a municipal parking lot to revitalize downtown. And the added park area was a bonus for a boardwalk, seating, and relaxation. That's all I have to say, but I want that for the record.
Mike, thank you for serving, Mike.
Okay, any other board members want to make any comments before we close?
No,
No?
No, Kenny, I just want to say, I have the comments that were given or spoken about on June 30th, and I took all of your guys' comments and I highlighted them in here. So at least maybe Jeff, I can just
Right.
give it to you so you can see. I know one thing that was just briefly brought up was the path, and it was brought up on the June 30th, the bike path. Somehow we have to incorporate, and again, this may be part of the master plan, the path from the bike path to the park. Again, it's pedestrian, So, I think it's great. The only thing I wasn't sure about is the present fountain that's there. I wasn't sure, like, if people wanted it or didn't want it. I don't know. Do you could take it down? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Yep. All right. Okay, yeah, and then what I see the thumbs. I like that, thumbs up, thumbs down,
I think
yeah.
that's gonna be
And then
repli-
what Mike said with the plaques, we can put the plaque someplace else. Another idea which many municipalities do is they get the bricks that you can engrave, so can do that as well. But I want to thank everybody. This was great, and Kenny, thank you for. We'll have time to talk, but thank you for hosting this meeting.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we have a town board meeting tomorrow night.
You're working, right?
I'm working, yeah, I'll be here. It's a town board voting meeting, and then we have a work session on December 8th, and December 15th is my final meeting. So if anybody wants to come out. I don't plan on
Kenny
doing
party.
what I did. I might, who knows? But if you want to come out and watch that, come on out.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, everyone.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So,
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.